Something unusual is happening in the world right now. Not something loud, not something explosive. No emergency broadcasts, no dramatic warnings, no sudden sense that everything is about to collapse, but something still feels different. Old assumptions are being spoken about more casually than before. Long-standing rules that once felt untouchable are now being tested, not through action, but through words. And the world is responding in a way that's easy to misunderstand, with silence. And silence in moments like this is never empty. When Donald Trump spoke about Greenland, there were no emergency meetings, no dramatic condemnations, no immediate sense of crisis. But there was attention, quiet attention, careful attention. Because when powerful people speak about land, history teaches us to listen closely. Hi, I'm Janus Juno. Thanks for being here. Today I want to talk about something that didn't dominate headlines, but still matters deeply. This isn't about outrage. It's not about political drama. It's about responsibility. It's about restraint. And it's about why certain words, spoken at certain moments, carry more weight than they seem to at first. This is about Greenland. This is about Donald Trump. And this is about how the world reacts when power speaks softly about things that are not simple. For a long time, Greenland existed quietly in the background of global politics. It was known but rarely discussed, mentioned in strategic briefings, pointed to on maps, talked about in terms of geography, distance, and location, but rarely spoken about as a living place. It felt distant, remote, almost abstract, ice, landmass, coordinates. But abstraction disappears the moment the language changes. The moment words like control, ownership, or influence enter the conversation, Greenland stops being a concept and becomes something very real. Because Greenland is real. It is home to people who live there, people who belong there, people who have built lives, families, and identities tied to that land. It is a self-governing territory. It has political structure. It has institutions. It has a voice. And even when that voice isn't loud on the global stage, it exists. So when someone like Donald Trump speaks about Greenland in a way that suggests possession or strategic dominance, those words don't stay neutral. They don't remain hypothetical. They travel. They move beyond the moment they are spoken. They move beyond intention. They are heard differently by different audiences. Allies listen carefully, not to react to but to understand direction. Rivals analyze quietly, not to escalate, but to calculate. Smaller nations feel a familiar tension, not panic, not fear, but recognition. Because history has taught them that words are often where pressure begins. In my view, Donald Trump should not have spoken about Greenland in this way. I'm not saying this emotionally. I'm saying it deliberately. This isn't about liking Trump or opposing him politically. It's about principle. Greenland is not American land. It is not an asset. It is not something waiting to be claimed. It is not something to be discussed as if availability were the question. Its future belongs to its people. And that future should never feel like it is being weighed by someone else's strategic interest. Even when language is framed as strategic, it doesn't remain contained within strategy rooms. Words move. They shape perception. They create possibility. They open doors that were not previously open. And possibility creates uncertainty. Not panic, not chaos, but unease. And unease has a long memory. The United States has always spoken about freedom, about self-determination, about the idea that people should choose their own path. These ideas are not slogans. They are not branding. They are part of America's identity. They are why the world listens even when America is not acting. They are why American words carry weight even when no policy follows immediately. So when language shifts, even slightly, people notice. Not to accuse, not to attack, but to ask questions. And questions once raised do not disappear easily. Donald Trump later clarified his position. He said he had no intention of using military force. He explained that his remarks were strategic, not aggressive. That clarification matters. It deserves acknowledgement, but clarification does not erase first impressions. Because once an idea enters the conversation, it begins to exist on its own. It becomes something others must respond to, even if that response is quiet. Allies pause, rivals observe. Smaller nations quietly reassess where they stand, not because they expect conflict tomorrow, but because uncertainty rarely announces itself loudly. Europe's reaction reflected that understanding. There was no shouting, no dramatic escalation, no public confrontation. Instead, there was restraint. And restraint carries meaning. It says borders matter. It says sovereignty matters. It says even words deserve care. China chose caution, avoiding direct confrontation, emphasizing stability. Russia chose observation, framing the moment as a signal, not a trigger. No one rushed forward, no one stepped back completely, but no one ignored it either. This moment isn't about weakness, especially not for Americans. America's strength has never come only from military reach or economic scale. It has also come from credibility, from the belief that power would be guided by principle, that influence would be exercised carefully. Real strength isn't shown by how much you can claim. It's shown by what you choose not to claim, and that is why this moment matters. Even without noise, even without outrage, even without visible consequences yet, what matters most right now is not only what was said, but what it reveals about the moment we are living in. The world feels different today, less certain than it did even a decade ago. Old systems are under pressure, trust between nations feels thinner, and power is being expressed in ways that feel less formal, less careful, and far more personal. In an environment like this, even a single statement can carry far more weight than it appears to, not because it changes reality overnight, but because it shows how leaders see the world and how they might act within it. Donald Trump has always spoken differently from traditional political figures. Some people see that as honesty, others see it as recklessness. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is undeniable. His words shape conversations. They move the boundaries of what feels acceptable to say out loud, and when those boundaries move, others adjust. That is why moments like this cannot be dismissed as harmless talk, because language is never just language when it comes from power. It sets tone. It creates permission, and sometimes it quietly reveals priorities. Greenland's situation points to something deeper about the global order itself. We live in a world that claims to respect sovereignty, yet constantly tests it. Large nations speak in terms of influence. Smaller nations speak in terms of survival. And in between, there is a growing sense that rules are becoming flexible again, depending on who is speaking. That flexibility may feel practical in the short term, but it carries long-term risks. Because once the idea spreads that sovereignty is negotiable, even rhetorically, stability begins to weaken. From a European perspective, Greenland is not a distant place. It is part of a shared political and cultural space. That is why Europe's reaction mattered, even though it was quiet. European leaders did not escalate. They did not threaten. They did not dramatize. Instead, they reinforced principles. Borders matter, autonomy matters, respect matters. Their response was not designed to win headlines. It was designed to stop momentum from building in the wrong direction. And sometimes restraint is the strongest form of leadership. China watched carefully, as it always does. Not because it wanted to intervene, but because moments like this offer information. They show how the West talks to itself. They reveal internal tension. They expose how values are applied when strategic interest is involved. In global politics, observation is never passive. Every signal is noticed. Every shift is remembered. Russia observed as well. Quietly. Patiently. Not to provoke, but to understand what this moment might mean later. For Americans, this conversation matters deeply. The United States holds a unique position in the world. Its words are amplified. Its intentions are analyzed. Its values are constantly measured against its actions. That means American leadership carries responsibility beyond domestic politics. It requires an understanding that global trust is fragile, and once damaged, it is difficult to rebuild. Speaking carefully is not weakness. It is stewardship. My concern is not that Donald Trump wants to strengthen America. That instinct is understandable. My concern is how strength is defined. Strength does not require testing boundaries simply because you can. It does not require talking about land and sovereignty as if they are chess pieces. True strength is quiet confidence. It is knowing when not to speak. Knowing when restraint protects more than assertion ever could. Greenland's people did not ask to become a symbol in a global power conversation. They did not ask for their home to be discussed as a strategic option, and that is exactly why this matters. Because global politics often forgets the human layer beneath maps and strategies. It forgets that land is lived on, not just measured. And once that human layer is ignored, it becomes easier to justify almost anything. This is not a call for outrage. It is not a demand for condemnation. It is a call for awareness, a reminder that the way leaders speak shapes the world just as much as the policies they enact, and that awareness matters now more than ever. Because we are entering a period where uncertainty is becoming the norm, not the exception. If the world feels quieter lately, it is not because nothing is happening. It is because many people are watching, waiting, and deciding what kind of future they are preparing for. Silence can be patience, it can be caution, or it can be a warning that trust is thinning. Which one it becomes depends on what comes next. In my view, neither unchecked power nor careless language leads to stability. The world does not need louder voices. It needs steadier ones. It needs leadership that understands the weight of words, especially when those words touch sovereignty, identity, and the lives of people who rarely get to speak for themselves on the global stage. If Greenland's name has entered this conversation, then it deserves respect within it. And if leaders like Donald Trump are shaping that conversation, they carry responsibility to speak with clarity, restraint, and awareness of consequence. This moment may pass quietly, or it may be remembered later as an early signal. Either way, it deserves attention, not because of fear, but because of principle. I'm Janice Juno. Thank you for listening. If you value calm analysis over noise, subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who prefers understanding over outrage. And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Because this conversation doesn't end here, it's just beginning.